I stared at the prenuptial agreement on my desk, running my fingers over the embossed letterhead of one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms. Even now, 5 years later, the memory of that day makes my hands shake. My name is Solstice, and I'm about to tell you how I turned a cruel prenup into the sweetest revenge. Sign here, dear. Savannah's manicured nail tapped the bottom of page 23. Her voice dripped honey, but her eyes were cold as she watched me from across the mahogany conference table. It's just a formality. All marriages in our circle have them. I remember looking at Titus, searching his face for any sign that he'd stand up for me. He avoided my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his Rolex watch. I'd like to read it first, I said quietly, pulling the stack of papers closer. Savannah's perfectly lined lips twitched. Of course, but we have dinner reservations at Le Bernardin in an hour. Perhaps you could speed things along? The attorney they'd chosen, a silver-haired man who looked like he charged more per hour than I made in a month, cleared his throat. The terms are standard. Mr. Romero's family assets are protected, and any joint assets acquired during the marriage will be split equally. Standard? I echoed, flipping through the pages. It says here I waive all rights to any property, investments, or business interests held by the Romero family. Well, darling, Savannah leaned forward, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. Surely you understand. We've built this legacy over generations. We can't risk temporary ornaments disrupting that. The slap of those words stung worse than if she'd actually struck me. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, but kept my voice steady. Temporary ornaments? Mother, Titus finally spoke, but his protest was weak, like everything else about him lately. I'm just being practical, Savannah waved her hand dismissively. After all, Solstice, you're what was it again? An administrative assistant? Executive assistant, I corrected, though it didn't matter. To them, I'd always be the girl from the wrong side of the tracks who somehow caught their golden boy's eye. May I have my own lawyer review this? I asked, knowing the answer before Savannah's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. The wedding is in 3 weeks, she said sharply. We don't have time for unnecessary delays. Either you sign, showing you trust our family, or— The threat hung in the air. I looked at Titus again, but he was examining his cuticles now. 5 years of dating, and he couldn't even meet my eyes. I have one condition, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. I want a clause added about independent ventures. The attorney frowned. What kind of ventures? Any business I might start on my own during the marriage. Those remain mine entirely. Savannah actually laughed. Oh, darling, planning to open a little Etsy shop? Something like that, I replied, watching her share an amused look with Titus. The attorney shrugged, probably thinking about his dinner plans. I don't see why not. It's irrelevant to the family's interests. He scribbled something on page 17, then pushed the papers back to me. Initial here and sign on the last page. I read the new clause carefully, memorizing every word while Savannah tapped her expensive heel impatiently. Then I signed. Welcome to the family, Savannah said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Now, about the wedding, I've taken the liberty of revising your choice of flowers. Peonies are so common. I nodded, already distant, thinking about the small jewelry-making kit hidden in my apartment closet, the one Titus had mockingly called my cute little hobby last month. Later that night, alone in my bedroom, I read through the entire prenup again. Savannah had been so focused on protecting their fortune, so convinced of my insignificance, that she'd handed me the perfect weapon without even knowing it. They shouldn't have underestimated me, I whispered to the empty room, carefully folding the papers and sliding them into my desk drawer. My phone buzzed, a text from Bailey. How'd it go with the dragons? I typed back. They think they've caged me, but they forgot to check if I had wings. Bailey's response was immediate. Girl, you're scaring me. What are you planning? I smiled in the darkness, thinking about the business plan I'd been quietly developing, the online courses I'd been taking in secret. "Just wait and see," I replied. "Just wait and see." The wedding was in 3 weeks. The revenge would take longer. But that was okay. I've always been good at playing the long game. "Oh, how quaint," Savannah's voice carried across the expansive living room as she examined my crafting table. "Titus, darling, perhaps we could move this little setup to the basement? It doesn't quite match the aesthetic we discussed." I kept arranging my beads, pretending not to hear. It had been 8 months since the wedding, and Sunday family dinners had become an Olympic sport in passive-aggressive commentary. "Actually, Mother," Titus said, barely looking up from his phone, "the basement floods sometimes. Wouldn't want to risk damaging your, what are those again, honey?" "Semi-precious stones," I replied, carefully wrapping rose quartz in copper wire. "This piece is for—" "Speaking of precious things," Denise cut in, swirling her wine glass, "did you see Caroline's daughter just landed a junior executive position at Goldman? 26 years old. Some people just have that drive." I bit my tongue, continuing my work. My phone buzzed quietly, a notification from my Etsy shop, another sale. "Solstice," Savannah called from the kitchen. "Be a dear and help with the plates. That's more your expertise, isn't it?" I carefully set down my tools and went to help, catching Bailey's eye as she followed me. She'd insisted on coming to these dinners lately, claiming moral support, but I knew she was really there to keep me from snapping. "Did you see the order that just came in?" Bailey whispered as we gathered plates. "That's your 3rd sale today." "4th," I corrected quietly. "Someone bought the moonstone pendant this morning." "Ladies," Savannah appeared behind us, making me jump. "Less chattering, more serving. Denise is telling us about her charity gala." Back in the dining room, Denise was holding court. "Of course, we're expecting at least 200 guests. Very exclusive. Solstice, dear, we'll need help with the coat check." "Actually," I said, setting down the plates, "I'm busy that weekend. I have a craft fair." The silence that followed was deafening until Savannah broke it with a laugh. "Oh, darling, this isn't some little church bazaar you can skip. This is a Romero family event." "I've already paid for my booth," I said firmly, "and I have orders to fulfill." "Orders?" Titus finally looked up from his phone. "You're actually selling those things?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. Then again, and again. Bailey grabbed it before I could, her eyes widening. "Sol, you need to see this." I excused myself to the kitchen, ignoring Savannah's disapproving click of the tongue. When I saw my screen, my hands started shaking. "Some influencer just shared your shop," Bailey whispered excitedly. "You've got 37 orders in the last 5 minutes." "Impossible," I breathed, scrolling through the notifications. But there they were, order after order, messages asking about custom pieces, wholesale inquiries. "Everything all right in here?" Titus appeared in the doorway, looking annoyed. "Mother's about to serve the main course." "Everything's perfect," I said, quickly putting my phone away. "Just perfect." Later that night, after everyone had left and Titus had retreated to his home office, I sat at my crafting table calculating numbers. With these new orders, I'd make more this month than my administrative job paid. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Saw your pieces on Instagram. We're a boutique in LA interested in stocking your line. Please call to discuss." I stared at the message, heart pounding. This was it, the moment I'd been planning for. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the business plan I'd been refining for months. "Still playing with your beads?" Titus appeared behind me, making me quickly close the laptop. "You know, if you need spending money, you could just ask." I thought about the separate bank account I'd opened last month, already holding a comfortable cushion from my online sales. "I'm good, thanks." "Well, don't stay up too late," he yawned. "Mother's expecting us for brunch tomorrow. She wants to discuss your wardrobe choices for the gala." After he left, I reopened my laptop and typed a quick email to Yosef, the quiet attorney I'd been consulting. Ready to move forward with the LLC registration. Let's meet Tuesday. Bailey texted, "You okay after tonight?" I smiled, looking at my crafting table, my launching pad disguised as a hobby. Better than okay. Remember what I said about wings? Yeah? They're getting stronger every day. I picked up the rose quartz piece I'd been working on earlier, now completed. It would sell for $300, not that the Romeros would ever bother to check my prices. They were too busy planning galas and judging my little hobby to notice I was building an empire right under their noses. Their biggest mistake wasn't making me sign that prenup. It was believing I'd stay in the cage they built for me. LLC registration complete, Yosef said, sliding the documents across his desk. Congratulations on officially becoming a business owner. I traced my fingers over the company name, Solstice Designs. Simple, elegant, mine. The separate bank account is set up? He asked, adjusting his glasses. Yes, and I've been documenting everything. Every penny earned, every supply purchased. Good, he leaned forward. Remember what we discussed. Keep your personal and business finances completely separate. And Titus doesn't need to know yet, I finished. As per the prenup clause we added. My phone buzzed. Another wholesale inquiry. They were coming daily now. I need a marketing person, I said, more to myself than Yosef. Someone who understands social media, scaling. Actually, he reached for a business card. I might know someone. That's how I met Layla. She walked into the coffee shop the next day like she owned it, designer laptop under one arm, portfolio in hand. I've been following your brand, she said, sitting down. Your aesthetic is incredible, but you're only reaching about 10% of your potential market. I sipped my coffee, studying her. And you can help with that? I can help you build an empire. She opened her laptop, turning it to show me a presentation. But first, we need to talk about your pricing strategy. You're selling yourself short. 2 hours later, I had a marketing director and a whole new vision for my company. Layla didn't just understand social media. She understood luxury branding, influencer partnerships, and most importantly, she understood me. Why are you working so late? Titus asked that evening, finding me at my crafting table. Just finishing some orders, I said, not mentioning the meeting I'd had with Layla or the 5-figure purchase order from a high-end boutique. Mother says you've been missing family dinners. I've been busy. He sighed, that condescending sound I'd grown to hate. With your little jewelry thing? Come on, Solstice. You need to prioritize. I thought about the warehouse space Layla and I had looked at earlier, about the 3 artisans I just hired to help with production. You're right. I do need to prioritize. The next few months passed in a blur of growth. My dining room table became command central, covered in shipping labels and order forms when the Romeros weren't visiting. Layla's marketing strategy was working better than we'd imagined. Look at this, Bailey said one morning, holding up her phone. A major fashion magazine had featured one of my necklaces in their must-have accessories spread. They didn't mention it was yours, she added. Good, I replied, packaging another order. Let's keep it that way. Later that week, during another mandatory family dinner, Denise was flipping through that same magazine. Oh, look at these pieces, she said, showing Savannah. This is what real jewelry looks like, Solstice, not that craft fair stuff you make. I caught Bailey's eye across the table, and we both had to hide our smiles. The craft fair stuff had just been picked up by 3 luxury department stores. Speaking of which, Savannah set down her fork. We hardly see you at family functions anymore, always busy with your little hobby. It keeps me occupied, I said mildly, thinking of the business meeting I had tomorrow with potential investors. Well, Denise smirked, at least she's not asking Titus for shopping money anymore. If they only knew that my last month's revenue could buy their entire dinner service set 10 times over. My phone buzzed. Layla had sent a message. The magazine wants to do a feature, full interview, brand spotlight. Should I set it up? Everything okay? Titus asked, noticing my expression. Perfect, I replied, typing back to Layla. Book it, but keep my name out of it. Use the brand only. That night, after another successful day of sales, I sat in my home office reviewing the numbers. The business had grown beyond my wildest expectations, but I kept playing small at home. Let them think I was just a housewife with a hobby. Let them underestimate me. My phone lit up with a text from Bailey. Did you see? Denise shared your magazine feature on Instagram. She has no idea it's your company. I laughed softly, thinking about the irony. The Romeros had spent years looking down on me, and now they were unknowingly promoting my brand to their social circles. Just wait, I texted back. The best part is yet to come, because while they were busy mocking my little hobby, I was building something they couldn't touch, something protected by their own precious prenup. And soon, very soon, they'd realize just how badly they'd underestimated the temporary ornament they'd welcomed into their family. Is that a Chanel bag? Titus asked one morning, eyeing my new accessory as I rushed to leave for a craft fair. Oh, this? I adjusted the strap, remembering when similar bags used to intimidate me at family gatherings. Just a good replica. He frowned, taking a closer look. It looks authentic. I'm late for my meeting, I said, quickly correcting myself. The craft fair. You're going to a craft fair dressed like that? He gestured to my designer outfit, another recent purchase I'd explained away as good deals from outlet stores. Some of us like to look professional, Titus. I grabbed my keys, but he blocked the doorway. What's really going on, Solstice? These clothes, the late nights, all these meetings? Nothing's going on, I said smoothly. My hobby's doing well, that's all. How well? I thought about the warehouse I'd just leased, the 30 employees now on payroll, the upcoming collaboration with a major department store. Well enough. His eyes narrowed. Show me the books. Excuse me? The financial records for your little jewelry business. He crossed his arms. If it's doing so well, you won't mind sharing the numbers with your husband. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but kept my voice level. Actually, I do mind. My business is separate from our marriage. Remember the prenup? The prenup? He laughed. That was about my family's assets, not your craft project. My phone buzzed. Layla was waiting at the office. Yes, we had an actual office now, not that Titus knew that. We can discuss this later, I said, stepping around him. I have to go. To another mysterious meeting? He grabbed my arm. What are you hiding? I pulled away, my patience wearing thin. Don't ever grab me like that again. His face reddened. I want to see the financial records. Tonight. No. I opened the door. And if you ever touch me like that again, you'll regret it. At the office, Layla could tell something was wrong. Trouble in paradise? He's getting suspicious, I said, reviewing the latest sales reports. The success is getting harder to hide. Maybe it's time to stop hiding, she suggested, pulling up our social media metrics. We're trending again. The new home decor line is exploding. I shook my head. Not yet. Everything has to be perfect first. Speaking of perfect, she grinned, wait until you see who wants to collaborate with us. She turned her laptop to show me an email from one of the biggest luxury retailers in the country. The numbers made my head spin. Holy, I whispered. Still want to keep playing small? Layla raised an eyebrow. That evening I returned home to find Titus in his office, surrounded by papers. The prenup was open on his desk. Had your lawyer look it over? I asked, recognizing the document. He looked up, startled. How did you, know? Because I've been 10 steps ahead of you since the day your mother made me sign that paper. What's that supposed to mean? My phone buzzed again. Another notification about our viral home collection. It means you should have read the fine print. Later that night I called Bailey. It's starting, I told her. He's digging into the prenup. Are you ready? She asked. I looked at my laptop screen, at the 8-figure revenue projections for the next quarter. More than ready. Solstice? Titus called from downstairs. There's something weird in this contract about independent ventures? I smiled, remembering Savannah's dismissive laugh when I'd requested that clause. Coming, dear. I found him frowning at the document. This says any business you start during the marriage remains solely yours? That's right. But, he looked confused. Your jewelry thing, it's just a hobby, right? I pulled out my phone and pulled up the Solstice Designs website, the one he'd never bothered to look at, the one featuring our nationwide locations, press coverage, and celebrity collaborations. Why don't you see for yourself? I handed him the phone. His face went pale as he scrolled, taking in the empire I'd built right under his nose. This is impossible. No, I corrected him. This is what happens when you underestimate someone. He grabbed the prenup again, reading frantically. But our lawyers, they checked everything. They checked what they thought was important, I said, turning to leave. They protected your family's money, but they never thought to protect you from me. I paused at the door. Oh, and Titus, you might want to call your mother. I have a feeling she'll want to review that prenup herself. Mrs. Romero, please have a seat. John Wells, Titus's lawyer, gestured to the chair across from his mahogany desk. His smile was strained, professional worry lines creasing his forehead. Actually, I said, setting down my Hermes bag, authentic this time. I'll stand. This won't take long. He cleared his throat. We've reviewed your company's financials. Impressive growth. But surely you understand that as Titus's wife. Let me stop you right there. I pulled out my own copy of the prenup, the one I'd kept safely stored all these years. Page 17, paragraph 3. Would you like to read it aloud? His eyes skimmed the page, and I watched the color drain from his face. The door burst open, and Savannah stormed in, Titus trailing behind her. This is absurd, she announced, her tennis bracelet jangling as she waved her arms. That clause was meant for craft fairs and bake sales, not a multi-million-dollar company, I finished for her. Funny how things work out. You manipulated us, Titus said, his voice shaking. You planned this from the start. I turned to face him. No, you handed me this opportunity. All of you did. Every time you mocked my little hobby, every time you treated me like I was beneath you. We'll fight this, Savannah declared. We have the best lawyers in Manhattan. By all means, I smiled, fight it. But first let me remind you who wrote this prenup. Your lawyers, your terms, your words. John cleared his throat again. Mrs. Romero, Savannah, she's right. The clause is ironclad. Any independent business venture started during the marriage remains solely her property. That's impossible, Savannah slammed her hand on the desk. Show me the company registration dates. I nodded to Yosef, who had been quietly observing from the corner. He opened his briefcase and produced a stack of documents. Solstice Designs, LLC, he read. Registered 6 months after the wedding. All paperwork filed correctly, all taxes paid, all profits kept strictly separate from joint accounts. But the money, Titus interrupted, she used our money to start it. Actually, I pulled out my original bank statements. I used the proceeds from my first few Etsy sales. Remember those? The ones you laughed at during family dinner? Savannah sank into a chair, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. How much? She whispered. How much is the company worth? I exchanged glances with Yosef, who nodded. Our latest valuation puts Solstice Designs at $15 million. Conservative estimate. The silence in the room was deafening. Titus stumbled over his words. That's more than our family's entire annual income, I finished. Yes, I know. I've seen your tax returns. Perks of being the little wife who handles the paperwork. You can't do this to us. Savannah stood up, her voice rising. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Was I family when you called me a temporary ornament? When you made me work coat check at your galas? When you treated me like a charity case for 5 years? I want a divorce, Titus announced suddenly. Finally, I said, something we agree on. John shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we could discuss a settlement. There's nothing to discuss, I cut in. The prenup is clear. Titus gets what he came with. I keep what I built. While using our name, Savannah protested. The Romero connection. Check your facts, I interrupted. I never once used your precious name. Every bit of press, every collaboration, every sale was under Solstice Designs. You were too busy looking down your noses to notice. My phone buzzed. Layla was texting about another major deal. I checked the time. Now, if we're done here, I have a company to run. This isn't over, Savannah hissed as I reached the door. I turned back one last time. You're right. It's not over. The divorce proceedings will start next week. But this? I gestured to the prenup on the desk. This ended the moment you decided I wasn't good enough for your family. As I walked out, I heard Titus ask in a broken voice, Mother, what have we done? In the elevator, I texted Bailey, It's done. They know everything. Her response was immediate. How does it feel? I thought about the years of subtle degradation, the sideways glances, the condescending comments. Then I thought about my growing empire, built piece by piece, while they weren't watching. It feels, I typed back, exactly like karma. The mediation room felt smaller than I remembered, despite its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The Romeros sat across the table, dressed like they were heading to a corporate takeover rather than a divorce settlement. Let's begin, the mediator said, shuffling her papers. We're here to discuss asset division in the dissolution of... We'll take 50% of Solstice Designs, Savannah interrupted, her voice sharp. That's more than fair, considering the company was built during the marriage. I glanced at Layla, who gave me a subtle nod. She pulled out a leather portfolio and began distributing documents. Before we continue, Layla said, I'd like to present our latest valuation report. As CEO of Solstice Designs, I believe these numbers will help inform the discussion. CEO? Titus sputtered. Since when? Since your wife brilliantly appointed me 6 months ago, Layla smiled, though I've been the marketing director for nearly 2 years. The mediator reviewed the documents, her eyebrows rising. These numbers are substantial. 23 million, I said quietly. That's our current valuation, up from 15 million last quarter. Savannah grabbed the papers, her hands shaking. This is impossible. You make jewelry, little trinkets, and... Actually, Layla interrupted, pulling up a presentation on the room screen. Solstice Designs has expanded into home decor, luxury accessories, and we've just launched our first flagship store in Soho. Perhaps you've seen it. The opening made quite a splash in Vogue. Titus loosened his tie, looking pale. But the prenup... Yes, I leaned forward. Let's talk about the prenup. The one your mother was so insistent on. The one that specifically protected any independent business ventures I started during our marriage. Our lawyers have reviewed everything, Yosef added, speaking for the first time. The company was founded with separate funds, maintained separately, and falls squarely within the prenup's protection clause. This is theft! Savannah stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. You've stolen our family's good name. Show me once, I challenged, where I used the Romero name. Show me one advertisement, one product label, one press release. Silence filled the room. You can't, I continued, because I never did. Every success, every milestone, every dollar earned was under my name alone. The mediator cleared her throat. Given the prenuptial agreement and the documentation provided, Solstice Designs is clearly separate property. It's not subject to division in the divorce. Then what do I get? Titus asked, his voice small. Layla pulled out another document. According to our records, you get the furniture you brought into the marriage, your personal belongings, and... She paused for effect. The credit card debt you've accumulated at your private club. This is outrageous, Savannah snapped. We'll appeal. We'll... You'll what? I stood up slowly. Expose how you forced a prenup on me? How you treated me like dirt for 5 years? How you never bothered to notice I was building an empire right under your noses? You tricked us, Titus accused. No, I corrected him. I outplayed you. There's a difference. The mediator shuffled her papers again. If there are no other assets to discuss. Actually, I reached into my bag. There is one more thing. I pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the table to Savannah. Your prenup, the original copy. I thought you might want it as a souvenir. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Why are you doing this? Because you wrote this script, Savannah. You were so worried about protecting your family's wealth that you never considered I might create my own. I'd like to make a counteroffer. Titus tried one last time. There will be no counteroffers, Yosef stated firmly. The terms are clear, and they're non-negotiable. I gathered my things, ready to leave this chapter of my life behind. You know what the funniest part is? I said, pausing at the door. If you had treated me with an ounce of respect, I might have shared my success with you. But you made it clear from day one that I wasn't good enough for your family. And now? Savannah asked, her voice barely a whisper. Now you're not good enough for mine. As we walked out, Layla squeezed my arm. That was better than any revenge fantasy I've ever had. It's not about revenge, I said, watching the Romeros through the glass walls, huddled together like survivors of a shipwreck. It's about justice and karma. My phone buzzed. Another notification about our soaring stock price. I smiled, thinking about how fitting it was that their precious prenup had become the very thing that brought them down. Ready to go? Layla asked. We have that meeting with the European distributors. I took one last look at my soon-to-be ex-family. More than ready. Let's build something even bigger. Have you seen this? Bailey tossed a magazine onto my desk. The cover showed me and Layla at our Soho store opening, surrounded by A-list celebrities wearing Solstice Designs pieces. From craft table to empire, how Solstice Designs became fashion's fastest-growing luxury brand. I read the headline aloud. The timing couldn't be better, Bailey grinned. The divorce was finalized yesterday, right? I nodded, spinning my now empty ring finger. Titus moved out last week, into a one-bedroom condo in Jersey. How the mighty have fallen, Bailey said, scrolling through her phone. Oh my God, speaking of falling, have you seen Savannah's latest Instagram post? She held up her phone, showing me a photo of Savannah at some charity event. The caption read, "Sometimes life's greatest lessons come from unexpected places. Humbled grow new beginnings." Humbled is right, I said. Their country club membership got revoked after Titus couldn't pay the dues. My office phone buzzed. Ms. Pearson, Denise is here to see you. I exchanged looks with Bailey. Send her in. Denise walked in wearing last season's Prada, looking decidedly less polished than usual. Solstice, this is a beautiful office. What do you want, Denise? She fidgeted with her handbag. I always knew you had potential. Even back then, I told Mother. No, I cut her off. You mocked me. You all did. Don't try to rewrite history now. We were wrong, she said quietly. I was wrong, and I thought maybe, given our history, you want a job, I realized. That's why you're here. She straightened up. I have connections. I know people, the same people who won't return your calls now that the Romero fortune is drying up. Her face fell. That's not fair. Neither was making me check coats at your galas, I replied. Neither was calling my work cute little crafts for 5 years. People change, she insisted. Yes, they do, but usually only when they're forced to. I stood up. I'm not interested in your connections, Denise. I built this company while you were busy looking down on me. Mother was right, she snapped, mask finally cracking. You planned this from the start. No, I corrected her. I survived your family's cruelty, and I turned it into fuel. There's a difference. After she stormed out, Bailey whistled low. That felt good to watch. My phone buzzed with a text from Titus. I need to talk. I messed up. Speaking of messing up, I showed Bailey the message. Are you going to respond? Before I could answer, my assistant rushed in. Ms. Pearson, the Times wants to do a feature. They're calling you the Queen of Quiet Success. I laughed at the irony. There was nothing quiet about my success anymore. The story had gone viral, the underestimated wife who turned a prenup into a weapon of karmic justice. Also, she added, Vogue wants you for their Women in Power issue. Book them both, I said. It's time to tell my story. Later that evening, as I was leaving the office, I ran into Layla in the elevator. Did you see? She asked, showing me her tablet. Our stock price doubled after the divorce news broke. Apparently, people love a good revenge success story. It wasn't about revenge, I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Tell that to Titus, she smirked. I heard he's been showing up at our retailers, trying to claim he's part of the company. How embarrassing for him. Almost as embarrassing as Savannah getting caught trying to return fake Solstice Designs pieces to our flagship store. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, where a group of young women was waiting for their interview slots. Each one clutched a portfolio, eyes bright with ambition. Remember when that was you? Layla asked softly. Except you didn't have anyone holding the door open. I watched the aspiring designers, thinking about how different my life had become. No, I had people trying to slam it in my face. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Titus. Please, I miss you. This time I replied, what you mistook for weakness was strategy. What you called a hobby became an empire. What you tried to control set me free. Then I blocked his number. Ready for tomorrow's board meeting? Layla asked as we walked out. I smiled, thinking about the expansion plans we'd be announcing. More than ready. After all, success is the best revenge. And karma? She raised an eyebrow. Karma, I said, watching my driver pull up in my new Mercedes, is just getting started. And that's why I'm here today, I said into the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces in the conference hall. To tell you that success isn't about revenge, it's about resilience. The audience of young entrepreneurs hung on every word. In the front row, I spotted Bailey wiping away tears and Layla nodding proudly. When they handed me that prenup, I continued, they thought they were protecting their wealth. Instead, they gave me the blueprint for my freedom. A hand shot up during the Q&A. Did you ever confront your ex-mother-in-law about how she treated you? Actually, I smiled, she confronted me last week, right here in this hotel. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for details. I was checking in for this conference when I heard her voice behind me. Solstice, she said, we need to talk. I paused, remembering the moment. Savannah looked different, smaller somehow. She'd sold her designer wardrobe, I'd heard, to cover legal fees after Titus's failed lawsuit. What did she want? Someone called out. To apologize? To negotiate? To beg? I shook my head. It didn't matter. I simply turned to her and said, No, Savannah, we don't need to talk. You had 5 years to talk to me, to see me, to treat me like a human being. That time is over. Murmurs rippled through the audience. She tried to follow me to the elevator, saying something about family and forgiveness. I stopped her with one question. Did you know I miscarried during our 2nd year of marriage? The room went silent. No, she said. Titus never told me. And I replied, I told him. I told all of you at a family dinner, but you were too busy discussing Denise's new yacht to hear me. I took a sip of water, letting the weight of that sink in. That's when I realized their cruelty had given me a gift. It taught me that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Another hand. What about your ex-husband? Does he regret his choices? Titus sends me letters sometimes, I admitted. Each one starts with "I'm sorry" and ends with a business proposal. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But here's what I want you all to understand. I leaned into the microphone. This isn't a story about getting even. It's about getting ahead. While they were busy protecting their legacy, I was building mine. In the back of the room, I spotted a familiar face, Yosef, my attorney, who'd believed in my vision from the start. The prenup they forced me to sign had one clause they overlooked, but the real oversight? They overlooked me. And that's the lesson I want you to take home today. Don't overreact, outgrow, outbuild, outlast. The applause was deafening. Afterward, in the green room, Bailey hugged me tight. That was incredible, but you didn't tell them about the foundation. Some things, I smiled, are better shown than told. Layla walked in with her tablet. The Solstice Foundation website just went live. First-generation college scholarships, small business grants for women entrepreneurs. And? I asked. And, she grinned. The first grant recipient is the daughter of your old admin assistant, the one Savannah said would never amount to anything. My phone buzzed, a news alert. The Romeros were selling their mansion. The photo showed a "for sale" sign in front of those imposing gates that had once intimidated me. Should we buy it? Layla joked. Turn it into a business incubator for women entrepreneurs? Actually, I said, that's exactly what we're going to do. Bailey's eyes widened. You're not serious. Dead serious. Let's transform their symbol of exclusion into a space of opportunity. Now that, Layla said, is karma. As we left the conference hall, a young woman stopped me. Ms. Pearson, your story changed my life. I was about to give up on my startup, but now? I touched her arm. Never let anyone else write your story, and never, ever sign anything without reading the fine print. She laughed, then grew serious. One more question? Do you regret any of it? I thought about the crafting table where it all began, now displayed in our company museum. About the prenup that became my ladder instead of my cage. About the family that tried to break me but made me unbreakable instead. No, I said finally. I don't regret a single moment, because every slight, every dismissal, every cruel word, they all became building blocks. And look what I built. We stepped outside, where my driver waited beside the car. The sun caught the Solstice Designs logo on the side, a rising sun breaking through clouds. Ready to go? Layla asked. I looked back at the conference center, where hundreds of women were leaving with new dreams and determination in their eyes. Ready, I said. We have an empire to run.